malam, halo para warga budaya. Bagaimana kabarnya nih? Semoga baik-baik saja ya. Ya semua sehat, tetap semangat. Jangan lupa bahagia. Nah, senang sekali malam hari ini saya Pak Edi bisa kembali hadir menemani warga budaya semua di program Mbah Tromulur. Nambah mitro ketemu sedulur. Memang malam hari ini kita akan bertemu sedulur. Kenapa bukan mitro baru? Karena sedulur tamu kita malam hari ini sudah berkali-kali ke Radio Balai Budaya Minomartani. Nah, ini di edisi Selasa tanggal 7 Januari 2025. Nah, selama 1 jam ke depan sampai pukul 9 saya akan menemani rekan-rekan warga budaya. Nah, malam hari ini tamu kita ini datang dari jauh, dari Melbourne, Australia. Tamu saya ini seorang Indonesianis. Beliau itu Indonesian lover, pecinta Indonesia, tapi juga sekaligus pecinta gamelan Jawa dan kebudayaan Jawa. Nah, namanya nanti kita tanya sendiri, tetapi di poster itu sudah ada. Namanya itu RICHIE, Bu RICHIE ini. Nah, topiknya ini apa? Menurut poster, dendang gamelan di Australia. Ya, bagaimana gamelan di Australia itu dibunyikan. Namun sebelum kita bertemu dengan tamu kita, izinkan saya mengatakan sesuatu nih tentang gamelan. Ya. Musik gamelan itu salah satu cabang seni, ya pasti itu. Nah, di Indonesia dikenal beberapa jenis gamelan. Maaf, batuk ini. Paling tidak dapat disebut ada gamelan Jawa, gamelan Sunda, ada gamelan Bali. Ya maaf Mas Didit, Mas Windy, ini rada watuk ya aku, obatin nang omah. Lazimnya instrumen gamelan itu terdiri dari kendang, gong, ada kenong bunang, rician, temung, saro, repak. Nah, di Candi Borobudur kita dapat menemui relief orang bermain instrumen musik yang diduga awal-awal dari gamelan. Nah, sebelum menemui tamu kita, alah yung, mohon maaf ini para penonton YouTube, batuk terus ini. Gila. Oke, izinkan saya menyampaikan beberapa hal tentang seni musik gamelan. Nah, saya teringat apa yang dikatakan oleh Profesor Dr. Sudarsono almarhum dalam bukunya Seni Pertunjukan dari Perspektif Politik itu tahun 2003. Beliau mengatakan bahwa perkembangan seni pertunjukan atau musik juga dapat dipengaruhi oleh faktor-faktor seni maupun non-seni. Nah itu, nah nanti gimana itu dendang gamelan di Australia itu. Baiklah, nah sekarang kita jumpai tamu kita. Selamat malam, Bu RICHIE sudah datang di Balai Budaya Minomartani. Nah, saya kira Bu Irin dipersilahkan untuk introducing yourself to the audience. Oke, silakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat malam and good evening to everyone. I'm very honoured to be here at Minomartani and very excited to see gamelan being painted and polished and restored for a wonderful performance. And I'm also very honoured to be in Yogyakarta at the centre of the most rich culture that I've ever experienced. And I'd also like to thank a few colleagues of mine who gave me some advice and ideas for this talk. So I'd like to personally thank Professor Margaret Kartomi of Monash University, Helen Parsaka, a female Dalang in Melbourne, and Ilona Wright, who's the director of the Melbourne Community Gamelan, as well as a gamelan teacher at the university and in schools. So I am an Indonesian teacher. Before I was an Indonesian teacher, I was a history teacher, and I was lucky enough to be offered a scholarship by the Government of Australia in around about 2000, when the government was saying that teachers should retrain in Asian languages. And I had been to Indonesia and really loved the language and thought this was an opportunity for me. And so I enrolled at Monash University and did a Bachelor of Letters in Indonesian. And while I was doing that Bachelor of Letters, I came to Yogyakarta, to Gajah Mada University, to do a intensive 6-week course, which was the equivalent of a whole year of university. And in that course, we were given the choice of doing tarian, ketoprak, atau gamelan. And I chose gamelan. And I remember we were in a big room somewhere near Gajah Mada, and we were instructed, and Pak Eddie was one of the teachers, and Pak Sukisno was also a teacher. And I can remember Pak Eddie saying that you look at gamelan as a meditation, and I took that advice and became very involved in gamelan and really loved what I was hearing, what I was learning. And when I came back to Melbourne after that course, I asked the lecturer. We had 2 wonderful lecturers at Monash in Indonesian, Pak Basuki Kosasi, who is now deceased, and Jacinta Kurniasi. And I said to them, what can I do? Where can I find gamelan? Where can I learn gamelan? And they said, go to the Indonesian consulate. So I went to the consulate, and there was a group being led by an Indonesian man, a Javanese man, Pak Pudiono. And so I joined that group and played with them for the year, played all different instruments, and just fell in love with gamelan. And then a year later, I went to Gajah Mada again, dan saya belajar kebudayaan Jawa. And there I started to play the gender. And I asked my teacher in Melbourne, Pak Pudiono, what instrument should I study and learn? And he said gender, and I had no idea what the gender was, how to play it, what it was, what it did. And when I came to Indonesia and started learning the gender, I thought, oh no, this is the hardest instrument of them all. It was so hard. And but I was filled with the challenge of it, and so I became a gender player, and I played with a group from the Indonesian consulate for about 15 years, and then sadly Pak Pudiono passed away and the groups all changed, and I joined a group at Melbourne University. I became president of that group for 5 years, and we did a lot of performances and developed a lot of wonderful gamelan music in Melbourne. So that's all about me.
Okay.
Oh, and I also became an Indonesian teacher, so that was one of the things that was very exciting. Once I got my Bachelor of Letters, I was so enthusiastic to teach people about Indonesia and about its culture, and that was the ideal opportunity, becoming a teacher. Thank you.
Oke, terima kasih Bu Irene. Wah, ini memang kalau bicara sama apa itu ke tipe-tipe seperti Bu Irene ini, kalau nggak di stop nggak berhenti. Oke, terima kasih Bu Irene. Nah, para pendengar Radio BBM FM dan juga para pemirsa YouTube kanal Radio BBM FM. Jadi tadi Bu Irene sudah mengenalkan diri, siapa beliau, kira-kira mulainya ketemu gamelan itu di mana? Ada di Yogyakarta, kemudian ada di Australia juga, kemudian sudah menyebutkan beberapa gurunya, baik yang ada di Jogja maupun yang ada di Australia. Nah, tapi ada satu pertanyaan, maybe there is one important question. So you are one of the Javanese gamelan lover in Australia. Okay, when did you start learning gamelan?
I started learning gamelan in the year 2000, and I had never heard of gamelan, never played it, I hadn't done much music. And then I went along to the consulate and saw the gamelan being played. I'd already been to Yogyakarta and seen some shadow puppet shows, but I started learning gamelan in the year 2000.
Okay. Nah, begini, Bu Irene. Jadi tadi para pendengar, Bu Irene sudah mengatakan bahwa beliau mulai belajar gamelan di tahun 2002 ya, 2002 ya, dan selanjutnya.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's go to Australia. What types of gamelan are there in Australia? Because we know that in Indonesia there are several types of gamelan.
Well, we've got a lot of groups, particularly where I come from in Melbourne. We've got many groups. We have the Javanese gamelan group, quite a few Javanese gamelan groups. The first one is the one I play in at Melbourne University. Then there's and we're called Melbourne Community Gamelan. There's a group called Mugi Rahayu, and they are more Keluar Kota. They are based in Bendigo, and they perform in the country. And then there's a Cirebon group, Putra Panji Asmoro. There's a couple of Balinese groups, Gamelan Dan Anda and Mahindra Bali, and some other smaller groups. And once a year we all get together and perform. And recently we've got a new gamelan group. It's a Rayog Ponorogo group. And so that's it. That's just in Melbourne. Nobody has ever done a study on all the different gamelan groups in Australia, but Melbourne has a lot. Sydney, they have quite a few gamelan orchestras, and they're based around the universities, and same with Queensland, Western Australia, and Adelaide and Tasmania. Not many groups, but they do exist, and they're based around the universities. Most universities do have a faculty of either Indonesian or music where gamelan is taught.
So how many sets of gamelan do you think in Australia now?
I have no idea.
You have no idea?
No idea. No.
More or less? 10?
I'd say there'd be more than that. There would be maybe 20 groups, 20 sets of gamelan.
Okay. So mostly in Sydney or in Melbourne? Or
Sydney and Melbourne mainly. And Queensland has some, but not too many.
Maaf Bu Irene, saya lagi batuk ini.
Tidak apa-apa.
Ya, mungkin supaya tidak menular pada Ibu.
There are also some gamelan groups in the schools. The director of Melbourne Community Gamelan, Ilona Wright, she teaches at a girls' school in Glen Iris in Melbourne, and she has a full gamelan set there. And there's Rowan. He has a gamelan group at his school in Altona, and so the children are exposed to gamelan once a week, and also do performances. And at Melbourne University, where Melbourne Community Gamelan is based, where I'm based, Ilona also teaches students. She has at least 20 to 30 students every semester, and it's very exciting to hear the final gong when they perform. And after only about 5 sessions of gamelan, they can put on a very good performance.
Okay, talking about gamelan Jawa, Javanese gamelan, how many sets do you think there are in Australia? Gamelan Jawa?
Maybe 10.
10. Okay.
But that's not definitive. It's
Okay,
just
no
kind of
problem.
a guess.
More or less.
Yeah, more or less 10.
And now I saw some programs in YouTube. There was apa itu wayang kulit Purwo program ya.
Yep.
So do you know how many sets or how many boxes of wayang kulit Purwo can we find in Australia?
Maybe I would say probably about 20, because there are some gamelan sets that aren't used and they're just in storage. We need more teachers of Javanese gamelan in Australia, but maybe 10 to 20 boxes of gamelan.
Gamelan.
Of Javanese.
Oh, Javanese wayang.
Yeah. Sorry, you asked me about the wayang.
Yeah, the wayang.
Okay. Now there again, nobody's done a study of it, but most of the universities would have a set of leather puppets.
Okay.
And we have a big set at Melbourne Uni.
Yeah. How about Sundanese wayang golek?
No, we don't think there's any at all.
No.
We don't know. We haven't heard of any Sundanese wayang golek.
How about Cirebon?
Yes, we've got there are several Cirebon groups, and there's one particular one in Melbourne that perform regularly with masked dancers, and they've got the whole range of the Cirebon instruments.
So if for example people want to study or to learn gamelan or wayang kulit, where can we find the set of gamelan and the set of wayang purwo?
Yeah, well, the wayang purwo and gamelan are to be found at Melbourne Uni. They're to be found in the consulate and the embassy. The embassies all have big sets of Javanese gamelan and puppets. And most of the universities in Australia do have sets of wayang kulit and gamelan. We have a big set in Melbourne, and we put on a big performance this year. We usually do one performance where we perform wayang in the morning, afternoon for school children, and in the evening for adults.
Now, this is about history.
Yes.
So who first introduced gamelan in Australia? When was it?
Yeah, it was 1971 actually, when Margaret Kartomi, who's a professor of music at Monash University and married to a Javanese man, she asked or invited Pak Pudiono to come in 1971, and she and Pak Pudiono worked at Monash for about 20 years developing gamelan, Javanese gamelan. So he was really the instigator. And Pak Pudi, I read a statistic the other day, he probably taught in Australia up to 20,000 people over a 30-year
Wow,
period.
20,000 people.
20,000
no.
people. Yep, he was very, very active. He was a wonderful teacher. Everybody loved him. He not only did he direct all the different gamelan groups in Melbourne, but he also had children's programs during the day at the Indonesian consulate in Melbourne, and every week there would be maybe up to 5 schools bringing students to play gamelan with Pak Pudi.
Okay. Now, which gamelan was first coming to Australia?
That's a very interesting one. It was based in the Indonesian embassy, and Margaret Kartomi at Monash University with Pak Pudi, they had to ask and borrow that set from the embassy, and then they were able to buy their own set of Javanese instruments when they started performing and making some money, and they could afford to buy a Javanese set and have it shipped over to Australia.
Okay, I've heard something about a very specific gamelan. If you know about this, could you please tell to the audience about gamelan digul?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So-
The gamelan digul is the most amazing gamelan. That's one of the most beautiful gamelans I've ever heard. It was made in the 1940s when the Dutch were defeated by the Japanese, and they took the Indonesians to West Irian, and they were prisoners in West Irian, and there are quite a few gamelan experts in that group of prisoners. And so what they did was they began to pick up anything on the ground, any scrap or any metal or whatever, and one of the prisoners was a tuner of gamelan, and so they actually made this gamelan set out of all the bits and pieces they could find on the land, and it is the most beautiful gamelan. It was brought to Australia when the prisoners came to Australia with the Dutch people, and it was restored by Pak, if I'm not wrong, Pak R.L. Suwadi, maybe 20 years ago, and he restored it to its full beauty. And then I think there was another Indonesian Javanese man who came about 5 or 6 years ago and did some restoration work on the gamelan digul, and it's now placed in Monash University in a museum at the university. It's available for everybody to look at and see, and every now and then it's brought out and is played. And I've heard it played, and it's got the most sweetest, beautiful, very quiet, unbelievable sound.
Okay, so people still play the gamelan digul, yeah?
They
now?
certainly play the gamelan digul, yeah.
Okay.
It's all been restored. It's in very good condition. I think 18 of the 22 instruments that were made are still, well, they're in the museum at Monash, and it is sometimes played.
Okay. Jadi para pendengar, jadi ada satu gamelan yang sangat spesifik yang ada di Australia, yaitu gamelan digul. Kenapa disebut gamelan digul? Karena gamelan itu dibawa dari digul di Papua, itu oleh salah seorang tahanan politik pada waktu itu yang Australia, dan sampai sekarang itu masih disimpan di Monash University di museum, tapi juga sudah direstorasi oleh beberapa seniman gamelan asal Indonesia. Kemudian sampai sekarang juga masih diperdengarkan, dimainkan. Itu demikian kira-kira kata Bu IRENE. Nah, sekarang saya akan tanya tentang pelatih, instructors gamelan. Siapa yang melatih para penggemar pecinta gamelan di Australia? Who are the instructors today? Are they volunteers? Are they Indonesian or are they Australians?
Well, that's an interesting question. We really miss Pak Pudi. He was the most wonderful instructor and the most enthusiastic gamelan teacher. But now the instructors are basically the directors of the different gamelan orchestras. They are all volunteers. They don't get paid very much. They might get paid for a performance, but the instructors are usually people who have studied gamelan in Indonesia or even studied it here in Australia under Pak Pudi. That was enough to give people a good background to instruct gamelan. So basically they are volunteers, they are people who've developed music. Most of them, the leaders or the directors, they come to Indonesia regularly and update their skills. And so they're volunteers and they instruct as well. And we're very lucky to have all these instructors. And sorry, they're not Indonesian either. There are very few Indonesian instructors. Most of them are Australians.
Okay. So mostly Australians who have been to Indonesia, who have studied gamelan in Indonesia. Okay.
Yeah. And we've also got a female dalang, Helen Pasaka. She studied at ISI, and every year we do a wayang kulit, and Helen is a wonderful dalang, absolutely wonderful. She speaks fluent Javanese as well.
Okay, can you tell some more about the women dalang?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, please.
Oh, yes. Well, she knows all the stories. She speaks Javanese. She's very inspiring, and she is a wonderful puppeteer, and audiences are enthralled by her performances. And she has lots of different voices, natural manipulation, and she just is a fantastic dalang.
Okay, so...
and it's great to have a woman dalang.
There is only one?
She's the only one, yeah.
The only one?
Yeah. Yep. We don't have any other dalang in Australia, as far as I know.
Okay, so you mean the Australian, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Now about events that you have in Australia. Do you have events or regular events of gamelan performance?
Yes, we do. I'm not sure about other states, but I can basically only speak for Melbourne. Okay. So Melbourne Community Gamelan have a wayang every year, and we have lots of other performances. We have a final gong at Melbourne University. We have smaller productions when people have ideas and want to really give gamelan a good go. And we have every year 8 gamelan groups in Melbourne get together in a local suburb, a local town hall, and each group demonstrates their particular type of music. And most of it is Javanese Javanese gamelan plus the 2 Balinese ones. And we do small performances at weddings and for local events, and so that's about it. So it's basically one big wayang kulit and lots of smaller productions.
Okay. So who usually organize the events?
It's the director of gamelan and the president and the secretary and the committee of the gamelan usually organise the events. And but we're also very lucky to be sponsored often by the Indonesian consulate, by the Indonesian embassy. And last year the wayang kulit we did at Gasworks, the 3 performances, we were sponsored by the Balai Budaya in Canberra.
Oke, jadi para pendengar dan para penonton YouTube bahwa para kelompok gamelan ternyata mereka juga berpentas, ada sponsornya. Tapi saya akan bertanya satu hal yang menarik, yaitu ketika kelompok gamelan itu main di pernikahan. You mentioned about a performance in a wedding.
Yes.
Is it a wedding reception? In a wedding reception?
Yes, at the wedding reception.
Who invites usually?
Well, it's usually the wedding, the couple who are getting married.
Okay.
They usually are Indonesian, so it's basically we perform at Indonesian weddings.
Okay.
And funerals, I might add.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We've been to quite a few funerals, and it's of professors who've been involved with Indonesia. Pak Pudiono, of course, we had a big gamelan ensemble when he died, and so it's basically the gamelan group and the person who's getting married or who has died being involved in gamelan.
Ya, wah ternyata tidak hanya diundang di pernikahan, tapi juga pada upacara pemakaman orang meninggal ini. Saya akan bertanya, gending-gendingnya apa baik? Nah, Bu Irene, so what gending do you play in a wedding?
Oh gosh, it was quite a while ago. I guess Willajeng would be an obvious one, but. I guess it's something that's very happy, like Singonaba, maybe Subakastowo, maybe Pariwisoto, Asmarondono, all those kind of pieces.
Okay, do you have pesinden in the wedding?
Oh, sometimes, but it's basically music because the family who are having the wedding have requested the music and not the singing so much.
That means if you say sometimes there was a pesinden.
Yes.
Who is the pesinden?
Oh, I think you know her, Paketi, very well. Ria Samajo.
Oh.
We're very lucky in Melbourne to have a wonderful pesinden, Ria Samajo, who's trained in Java. Her father was Javanese and mother is Australian, and she performs regularly with all the different gamelan groups in Melbourne. She's in high demand because her voice is so rare. And when Paketi came to Australia, she was in the group.
Okay, terima kasih. Halo Mbak Ria, so salam dari Jogja ya. Nah, so now about the gamelan in the funeral. So what kind of gending? Ya, ini saya sedang menanyakan kalau pada upacara pemakaman ini gendingnya apa saja. So what kind of gending do you play in a funeral?
It's been quite a while. I honestly can't remember what we played, but I guess it's something that's very somber and very quiet and very nostalgic. Yeah, I can't think of any gendings that we have.
Did you play at Pak Pudiono's funeral?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember one gending?
I think we played Willajeng.
Willajeng also.
Yeah.
Okay. How about the other? Saya esok mau ilang or what? Or telutur?
Yeah, we did play that telutur.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Nah, ternyata di sana itu juga para atau kelompok gamelan itu juga main di tempat pemakaman. Kalau di sini kan di tempat seniman gamelan atau dalang yang meninggal itu kelompok gamelan itu memainkan gamelan. Di sana juga ada. Luar biasa ini. Nah, ke Mas Didit, saya ingin ada video klip Bu Irene. Let's look at the video.
RICHIE, and I live in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, and I have been an Indonesian teacher, and now I'm writing some stories. I was inspired when I was an Indonesian teacher to find children's stories in Indonesia, and I found these wonderful stories about the kunchul, a little mouse deer, and I was lucky enough to see a shadow puppet show with the kunchul, and then I found books about the kunchul, and I started telling my students the stories, and they absolutely loved them. So I had the idea of writing them, retelling the stories in English, and Pak Edi Pusabarianto, my friend, he offered to work with me with these stories, and the English department of Gajah Mada University was willing to publish them. So that's how those stories have been written. This is the third book that Pak Edi Pusavarianto and I have written together. It's been a very exciting collaboration because Pak Edi is a Javanese man who knows all the traditional stories, and it's been very exciting that he has presented these stories to me and I've been able to rewrite them. We've done 3 books and they've all been published by the English department of the Faculty of Cultural Science at Universitas Gajah Mada. The first book was a story of general cultural stories. The second one was Javanese stories, and this third one is one particular story, the story of Kanchul's birth, and it also brings in a few other stories, and it has even a story about the Kanchul using the beautiful flower, the orchid, to trick a giant who's driving the animals in the forest mad. And one of the reasons that I'm really interested in the Kanchul is because he's a trickster. He's a small animal who can outwit the big and powerful animals in the world. And I'm very much a believer in peace and wanting peaceful solutions to problems, and the Kanchul is exactly that kind of character. He doesn't use violence. He uses his brain, he uses his thoughts to solve problems and help all the animals in the forest. This book is different to the other books because it is one long story, but within the story there are a number of smaller sub-stories. It's basically about the Kanchul who's very sad. He realises he's never known who his parents are, and he asks all the animals in the forest about this. He finds out from the buffalo that the buffalo knows his secrets, and the buffalo tells him that he will only reveal all these secrets to him if he solves the problem in the forest, which is there's a mean and nasty ogre causing havoc, eating all the animals. And so the Kanchul has a brilliant idea of telling the ogre that there is an orchid that he's looking after for the king, and the ogre of course wants this orchid, but it really has a trick ending, which you can read if you read this book. The book is aimed at children from the age of 2 right up to the age of 18 really, and even adults can read it. I find that with a 2 or 3 year old you can tell them the story and act it out and have a lot of fun with it. When they get to 5 or 6 you can read it to them, the teacher can read it, older children can read it themselves, and those who are in their teens can enjoy these stories because they all have a moral ending. They're like a fable, and they're like a lot of other cultures have these books like Brer Rabbit in America and Aesop's Fables in Europe. So adults can also enjoy them because they encompass lots of moral ideas and lots of philosophical ideas. So there's always something to discuss in the cultural stories.
Okay, Bu Irene, can you tell our viewers and our listeners about that video clip?
Well, it came out of the fact that Pak Edi and I have written 5 cultural storybooks about the mouse deer, and Pak Edi's son Wisnu wanted to make a film clip of the story of how I came to be involved in Wayang Kanchul and the Kanchul stories, and how Edi was involved.
Okay, but do you also play Wayang Kanchil in Australia, or Wayang Kanchil perform in Australia?
We have done Wayang Kanchul with Pak Edi.
I didn't remember that.
Pak Edi did 2 performances in Melbourne of Wayang Kanchul, but that's been the only Wayang Kanchul that we've ever had. But
okay.
On the other hand, we've written these books together, and I've sold them widely through the schools in Australia, whether they teach Indonesian or not, because they're most wonderful children's stories.
But why are you then interested in Wayang Kanchil? That's also another question.
Oh, yeah. Well, Wayang Kanchul, it's one of the most exciting projects I've ever been involved in. I'm so interested in it because of so many different aspects. There's the aspect of the animal world and how so many animals are becoming extinct, and particularly the animals of Indonesia. And one of the aspects that I really enjoyed in writing these stories was to be able to promote the animals of Indonesia, because in the whole world, people are so ignorant. People don't know about orangutan, they don't know about the honey bear, they don't know even about the kunchul. So it was a way of showing through these stories that animals and the forests are worth preserving. Also, I love the kunchul stories and love to write about them because they show a tiny little character who is very weak, but he has great intellect and great ideas, and he can overpower the great and powerful animals of the forest by being skillful and cheeky and a bit naughty, and that's what he does. And that shows that you don't need to be sort of angry, and you don't need to be physical and aggressive. If you use your intellect, you will solve all problems, and that's why I love the kunchul. So I also like the fact that he shows how not to be a bully, how he sees all problems as a challenge, and he never gives up trying. And I think all those qualities are important qualities we can all learn from.
Okay. Who first introduced you to Wayang Kancil?
Oh, gosh.
To Kancil stories.
Kancil stories.
Oh.
I think it was you, Pak Eddie.
Was it me?
Yeah, I think it was. I came to Minomartani because you were my lecturer in Gajah when I did the intensive course, and I came here and I saw these incredibly colourful puppets and beautiful characters of the animals, and I think that's when I first saw Wayang Kancil. And then I went to the bookshops in Jogja, Gramedia and other bookshops and found all these stories in Indonesian, and then I took them back to Australia and I wanted to share them with the school children that I was teaching, but it was a really big problem because it meant translating all the stories, and I didn't have the time to do that. So then Pak Eddie said to me he would like to work on these stories with me and write them in English, and so I thought that was the best idea.
Okay. You still interested in writing more about
Yes, because the animal world is in greater trouble and under greater threat than ever before.
So what about the response of your students about the Kancil stories?
Yeah, that's what spurred me on to work with Pak Eddie and write these stories, because the students loved them so much and they really enjoyed the characters and really enjoyed the amazing ways in which the Kancil could outsmart the tiger and the crocodile and the snake, and yeah, that's why.
Yeah, because there is a different perception about the character of Kancil.
Oh.
Some people say that, why Kancil? Kancil is a trickster or something.
Oh.
So how do you explain this to your students?
A trickster gets results, and a trickster isn't necessarily a bad thing, but in other ways he's not really a trickster, because he goes into the farmer's cucumber patch and takes the cucumbers, and it's only because man has ruined the forests and Kancil has no food. So he has to be a trickster to survive. So I would say it's a survival technique, being a trickster. And good on him.
So the keyword is survival. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now, Bu Irene. So now let's go back to the gamelan and wayang in Australia.
Yes.
So you're still a member of the gamelan community in Melbourne.
Yes.
University.
Yes.
So what is your position?
Oh, well, I've been president for 5 years, and now I'm giving the job to a younger person. And my role is to play the different instruments, and or perhaps be very involved in organising performances and that kind of thing. Yeah, just to be really involved with the organisation, with the music, and also bettering my skills at playing gamelan. That's one of the reasons I'm in Jogja right now, because I'm having lessons with Pak Sakisno, and I want to improve my gamelan playing.
Okay, so what instrument do you play in gamelan?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because I remember when I asked Pudiono 20 years ago what should I play, and he said gende, and I came to Jogja. I had no idea what a gende was, and when I started playing it, I realised how hard it was. But I just love the gende. It's the most beautiful sound, and it's a challenge. And I enjoy hearing my teacher Sakizno saying no, no, no every time I make a mistake. So that's what I aim to play, the gender, and I would also like to play a bit more of saron and saron penurus and pecking and some of those other instruments. But the gender is the one I love most of all, and I've got a gender at home, and I've even got one in my hotel here in Jogja.
Oke, jadi ke para pendengar, jadi dulu gurunya Bu IRENE yang namanya Pak Pudiono itu ketika ditanya, saya harus belajar apa untuk gamelan yang pertama kali waktu itu, dan Pak Pudiono menjawab, kamu harus bermain gender. Bingung Bu IRENE karena apa? Ya belum tahu gender itu apa, mainnya kayak apa. Ternyata sangat sulit. Nah kalau di sini main pertama apa? Saron. Nah, itu ya karena itu itu metode yang paling mudah, itu caranya ya saron dulu kalau di sini, tapi di sana langsung gender. Wah bingung. Ya tapi Bu IRENE punya gender di rumahnya, dan di tempat penginapannya juga ada gender, jadi bisa belajar di sini. Ya, rebab enggak? Do you play rebab?
No, I actually play another instrument called a harp lute, which is a bit like a rebab, but that's a European instrument.
And do you play like rebab?
No.
Oh, no. Okay. No, I mean
a little bit like rebab, but not really.
Okay. Nah, ke Bu.
I think one complex, difficult instrument is enough, like the gender. That'll keep me going for the rest of my life to master all those pieces and all the fingering and all the patterns and the memorization. And yes.
How about the gambang?
I have played the gambang. I have had a go at it, sure, but I would rather play the gender.
Yeah, tapi you have played gambang, yeah?
Yes, I have played gambang.
Okay.
Actually, I've played just about all the instruments of the gamelan. In fact, our director, she encourages us to move instruments. We will have maybe once a month, we'll all play a different instrument.
Okay. How about kendang?
Yeah, I've had a go at it. I've played that, yes. Yeah, we've all in our group, everyone's had a go of gendang.
Yeah. How about vocal?
Oh, I love to sing, yeah. Yeah, I do like to sing, but I won't sing now.
Yeah, I would like you to sing. What song do you usually?
I don't know. I haven't got the words with me. I can't remember them.
What do you remember? Something like Gundul Pacul or what else? Apa?
I'm not sure. I haven't got the words. I can't remember them. Chaping Gunung I like.
Oh, you like Chaping Gunung,
yeah. But,
do you know what Chaping Gunung is about?
It's about the hat.
Yeah.
The chapping that the farmers wear, but it's also about some young man who goes to war and doesn't come back, and his mother is bemoaning the fact that he hasn't come back from the war.
Zaman berjuang.
Ya turutan anak lanang yen toko bemi yang saiki ora lali.
Iya. Oke, terima kasih. Wah, ini luar biasa ini. Nah, if you have many gamelan groups in Australia.
Yeah.
Now let's go back to find an example from the community University Gamelan, yeah? Yes. Melbourne community.
Yeah. Melbourne Community Gamelan.
Melbourne Community Gamelan. So who are the supporters or the working partners for the life of gamelan and wayang in Australia?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's kind of people volunteer, people will give donations, people will come to our performances. We don't actually have organisers we don't actually have partners or supporters for the life of gamelan. People might want to donate to a particular performance, and then we've also got all the embassies and consulates that help as well. So there's no such thing really as a supporter or partner for life.
Okay.
We don't have that. Maybe that's something that we can do in the future. Through
how about the Australian government?
No. I guess we do get grants every now and then from local government, but the Australian government, I guess it's just a matter of, is there money? It's a matter of, are there people willing to ask for the money, for support? And usually when we have done performances in the past, we do get grants from the local councils, and that's where we get most of our money.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
We don't have lifelong supporters or people. Sometimes we have. Sometimes someone will come forth and offer financial support.
yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes that gamelan needs retuning.
Yes.
Yeah, who does the tuning, retuning the gamelan?
Right. Usually, if we have a visitor from Indonesia, they will do the tuning, and and I think Joko Susilo, who is based in New Zealand, he came and did a wayang kulit with us, and he tuned all the instruments. And there's also Danis, I've forgotten his surname, in solo. He has also been with us and worked with us, and he has also tuned the gamelan.
Okay,
And Paka RL when he was here too.
I see.
RL Suwadi. So if Indonesian gamelan maestro comes to Australia, we usually ask them to tune the gamelan.
Okay. Now, Bu Irene, so when I was in Hawaii, so I went to some practice, gamelan practice with the local gamelan group. And I saw the gamelan, especially the gong, near the gong.
Yes.
There is a set of small offerings like flowers and so on and so on. And because they say that the gamelan came from certain place here in Jogja, maybe from Pakualaman or whatever. But they serve offerings. Do you or do other people in Australia do that?
Yes, we do. We do. We honour that tradition. We know it's a big tradition in Java and Bali, and we will not perform unless we've got an offering of flowers.
Okay.
So we do that.
What kind of flowers? Because we have different flowers.
I guess we don't have the cultural background of Indonesia, and the flowers have meaning. We just pick whatever flowers are blooming at the time.
Okay.
There's no significance to the flowers.
You do it regularly or only when you are going to perform?
Only when we're doing a performance.
Also,
we don't do it regularly.
Okay, because here...
I'm speaking for my group, Melbourne Community Gamelan. I'm not sure about other groups.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No problem. So, because people have a different way of thinking. Yeah,
that's right. Okay. Yeah.
Nah, okay. Now, Ibu Irene. So, if, for example, someone want to contact at least Melbourne community gamelan, what they should do. So, for example, Indonesian who wants to contact the organization, or even Indonesian here in Indonesia, or Indonesian who are studying in Australia, what they should do.
Yes, well, we have a person appointed every year on the committee who is in charge of new members. So they advertise that the gamelan's available and we'd love new members, and they also can have a look on our website, and we get a lot of people who are interested, and we have a waiting list actually of people who want to join the gamelan. So it's a matter of looking up the website, getting in touch with the new members secretary, and then finding time to join us. And so we offer them 3 lessons or 3 sessions of gamelan, and if they're happy and we're happy, they then join us if there's a room. But we do have a waiting list.
Okay.
And then this year...
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And then this year we're doing something very exciting. We're starting a class before we play from 6:30 to 8:30, but we're going to open the gamelan room at 5:30 and have a gamelan children's group. So we're going to encourage children to come for that first hour and learn some gamelan.
Do they have to pay for the to join?
Yes, but it's very cheap. It's not much money.
So how much is now?
Well, we pay $80 a term. And that's
$80
a term.
A term.
And there are 4 terms in the year.
4 times in the year.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, but the instructor is not paid.
The instructor is paid, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that money goes to the instructor.
Okay. Ya. Okay. Nah, ke Irene, I think you have to give a closing statements.
All
So the
right.
closing statements can be everything. You can also say hello to your friends everywhere in Australia or
Can I
whatever.
tell an interesting story about
Sure.
Hawaii? Yeah, one of the reasons, or one of the experiences that I had with Wayang Kunchal, there was a gamelan list on the internet, and all people interested in gamelan all over the world joined that list. And there was a man in Hawaii, an Indonesian man who lived in Hawaii, Ian Kendro, and he knew a lot of Kunchal stories. And I was really interested in hearing some of those Kunchal stories.
Okay.
And so he told me about them. But the interesting thing is that he came to Australia in 1956 playing soccer in the Olympic Games.
Okay.
So that was really good. And I wrote a book of his stories too.
Okay. So, but that's not your closing statement.
No.
Okay, now please.
Oh, well, to close, I'd just like to thank Pak Eddie for asking all these interesting questions. It's got me thinking about things that we can do in Melbourne. I'm very grateful that I've discovered gamelan because it's such a big passion. A lot of people, when they get to my age and retire, they don't have anything to do, and I've got this very big passion for gamelan and never have a minute to spare. So I'm very grateful that I've been able to come to Indonesia and been able to study gamelan and continue to study gamelan.
Okay, I remember one thing before we close this session. Yeah, okay, there is one person which is who is very important, Pak Wahid Supriyadi.
Yes.
He was the consulate general in. Okay, so maybe you can say something about this.
Yeah, Pak Wahid Supriyadi was instrumental in having the gamelan groups in Melbourne perform at the National Gallery of Victoria. The National Gallery of Victoria is one of the most prestigious galleries in the world, and Pak Wahid encouraged us. He was an incredible supporter of gamelan, and to produce gamelan in the gallery, we called it 3 times or even 4 times. Big audiences and big gamelan ensembles, maybe 6 or 7 groups performed at once. And it was thanks to the great generosity and enthusiasm and support of Pak Wahid, and I thank him very much for all those experiences.
Oke, baik. Sudah tidak terasa para warga budaya, sudah 1 jam saya dengan Bu Irene Richie menemani warga budaya di acara program Mbah Tromulur. Nah, sudah saatnya nanti saya dan Bu Irene harus undur diri nih. Tapi nanti jam 9 sampai jam 10 malam acara berikutnya adalah Harmoni Nusantara. Nah, biasanya ini yang mengasuhi Mbak Palupi. Ya, tapi Mbak Palupi ini ada atau tidak, karena yang lalu ini agak kesehatannya agak terganggu. Ini, tapi ingin saya sampaikan dulu, minggu depan hari Selasa itu tamu saya juga sangat spesial. Hari Selasa depan tanggal 14 ini tamu saya ini dari Singapura nih, orang terkenal, namanya Pak Yan Merasek. Pak Yan Merasek ini juga seorang gamelan lover. Beliau adalah penulis buku tentang wayang. Nah, beliau sekarang sedang ada di Yogyakarta dan beliau akan mampir di Radio BBM FM untuk ngomong-ngomong dengan saya nanti di hari Selasa 1 minggu lagi. Nah, warga budaya jangan kemana-mana, nanti kita masih akan bertemu di Selasa depan dan juga akan bertemu dengan Mbak Palupi sebentar lagi. Tetap stay tune di 107,7 FM Radio BBM, Radio Budaya, Radio Warga, Radio kita bersama. Saya percaya bahwa apa yang kita obrolkan antara saya dengan Bu Irene ini bisa menambah wawasan tentang luasnya seni gamelan di luar negeri, terutama di Australia ya. Kita sangat berbangga hati. Bulan Desember yang lalu, tanggal 15 Desember, itu gamelan sudah dicanangkan sebagai warisan budaya dunia. Ini 15 Desember yang lalu ya. Jadi tetapi tidak ada acara khusus waktu itu di Balai Budaya Minomartani. Karena acara khusus itu baru di minggu ini bulan Januari, yaitu Mawayang kelima. Nanti tanggal 10 dan 11 Januari. Sehingga para warga budaya jangan lupa nanti tanggal 10 dan 11 Januari ini acara besar di Balai Budaya Minomartani, yaitu Mawayang ke-5. Oke. Saya Pak Edi mohon pamit. Akhirul kalam, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye-bye Ibu. Selamat malam. Oke, terima kasih Mas Didi dan Mas Windy.